Rebel Mr. History, brought to you in part by Dixie Gun Works in Union City, Tennessee. From an old Indian trail to a roadway for early settlers, the Natchez Trace stretches 444 miles from Natchez, Mississippi to Nashville, Tennessee. On today's episode of History Highway, we're heading down the trace to the oldest city on the mighty Mississippi River. Named after the Natchez Indians, Natchez, Mississippi is a place rich with historical locations. Famous for its Spanish moss and beautiful antebellum homes, this southern town should be on your top 10 list to visit. Our destination today is the home of a man known by many as the Barber of Natchez. William Johnson is a good old American name, but what if I told you that name belonged to an interesting gentleman, a freedman of color? Joining me today will be Donnie Kennedy, and he's going to tell me more about William Johnson, a freed man of color. One, two, three. We're gonna drive in every day, and somewhere along the way, there's a road sign with a story from the past. History is everywhere, and I'm gonna take you there. So buckle up tight, we're going there real fast. So take a ride down the history highway. We're headed right to the days of old. So take a ride down the history highway. I got the pedal to the metal and I'm letting this Chevy roll. It doesn't matter if you're a reenactor who loves the smell of black powder in the morning on the battlefield, or a collector who admires the craftsmanship of a well-made weapon of old. Dixie Gun Works has a Pedersoli just for you. And not only does Dixie Gun Works have a warehouse full of Pedersoli reproduction firearms, they have an incredible collection of antique firearms. Inside the pages of their huge catalog, you will find gun parts, shooting accessories, reenactor clothing, camping supplies, and even some big guns if you like to burn a lot of powder. Dixie Gun Works is located in Union City, Tennessee. But for your convenience, visit our online store at www.dixiegunworks.com or call 1-800-238-6785. Much to our dismay, on the day we scheduled our film shoot at the William Johnson home, it and the museum were closed for maintenance and repair. Thanks to the National Park Service, this short slide presentation will give you an idea of what's inside. Always accommodating, the National Park Service sent us to Melrose Mansion, which is another one of their locations. It would be here on the grounds of the Grand Estate that Donnie Kennedy joined me for an interview. William Johnson, a freedman of color. What can you tell me about this gentleman?
Well, listen, just in a nutshell, it's probably the most spectacular antebellum home in Natchez. Not because it's the most spacious, but because it's owned by a freedman of color, William Johnson, who happened to be a businessman, owned two businesses, both in Grand Gulf as well as here in Natchez. He owned a plantation. He owned slaves. He was a great hunter and also a great writer. He's got 16 years of record of Natchez pre-war. It started, I think, about 1855, back 16 years, whatever that would be. So
Right.
he was a marvelous fellow, a very interesting, but the unique thing is it destroys this stereotypical view of the South, race relations, and
Right.
also slavery.
Right, and the interesting thing, that somebody else just local before you talked to me about the story, that's the reason it sparked such interest. I was working with some people here in Natchez, and they had mentioned William Johnson, and that he owned barber shops and had tons of white customers that would come to him, and that was so intriguing to me. And then when you brought up the subject of William Johnson, it's like, man, we've got to do this story.
Right, and I tell you, what to me the most unique aspect is how he received his freedom, and how both the legislature of Louisiana and Mississippi cooperated and worked with the slave master to see to that the young man was freed and was educated, and that made a difference. You see, they were looking to the high road of emancipation. How do you transition somebody from a position of slavery? You educate them, make sure they have a job opportunity, and then put them into freedom.
But the interesting thing that I like about him is he did not feel sorry for himself. He took that freedom and he ran.
Absolutely.
So one of the park rangers said he was a hustler. Well, yes, but it's not what we think of as hustler today, is doing something underhanded.
No.
This man hustled to make it in America.
In America.
Become an enterprising man.
And in the South. And the unique thing about his antebellum home, which hopefully we'll get some pictures of shortly, is that it's in downtown Natchez. It's not in the, quote, colored quarters. It's not in some black ghetto. Downtown. He was a well-respected citizen in Natchez. So it just speaks volumes to not only William Johnson, but the people in the South at that time. Is so different than what the common woke mentality would tell us about race relation in the Old South.
Sure, and that's more than anything, Donnie, is what I want to do with this program, is to kind of, we hear the other sides of the story all the time, but we want to tell this side of the story that actually comes from his journal. Now, you have a journal that was made by the Louisiana State University, is that correct?
LSU did and it's that thick. I can bring you a copy and show you. It's that thick. It's a journal, but it's a day-by-day journal. And he journaled not only his business affair, but he also talked about politics, of all things. He talks about hunting and how good he was with firearms. Now, listen, remember, we're all told that colored people in the Old South could not own firearms. Well, obviously somebody didn't tell William Johnson that. And many other, and as I've documented in a lot of my books, many other slaves owned firearms. Jefferson Davis's slaves all used firearms themselves on their plantation about, I think it's maybe 20 miles upriver from here. So there's a different side to that story, and William Johnson is one of those characters that really brings it into focus.
And when I did my book on Jack Henson, he did the same thing with his, all the black Hensons. They called where they lived Hensontown. And that's what they did. He taught them all how to shoot, and they were magnificent hunters.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Confederate military was full of sharpshooters that were black. In Vicksburg, there's account after account of Yankees talking about a certain black sharpshooter that was killing people left and right. Holt Collier, you know the story of Holt Collier. He was a sharpshooter for a Texas group. He was from Mississippi, but he was in a Texas Confederate unit and was a sharpshooter there. So yes, blacks had weapons or could use weapons. They didn't keep them in their house. They were kept in an arsenal. They were issued the weapons to go hunting with, and even Jefferson Davis mounted his slaves and armed them to drive off some white people that were trying to steal his land.
Well, that's interesting.
That's an interesting story there.
That's a good story. Now, jumping back to William Johnson, a lot of this took place pre-war. During the war, what happened to the estate? What happened to?
Well, most of the estates that were owned then, of course, were destroyed. Here, and we are very fortunate here. We're in Natchez right now. Now, Melrose is behind us here. Unlike Vicksburg, there was no troops around Natchez. So when the Yankees came here, there was no fighting. They just more or less took over. the people in Vicksburg used to be critical of the people in Natchez because they said, we fought and lost everything, you didn't fight. Well, there was nothing to fight with. The fortunate thing for us today, we have Melrose, we have William Johnson's home, we've got Dunleavy, we've got all these beautiful antebellum homes that we can come now and look and see, and it was saved providentially for us. So now after the war, if other than Natchez area, they were all totally destroyed. And what happened, unfortunately, was that plantation system, once it was destroyed, the free people that were now free people, they had nothing to support them. They were literally starving to death.
When we return, Donnie Kennedy will explore the family tree of William Johnson.
Looking for a place to go? The Alabama Music Hall of Fame should be the next place on your bucket list. From the Swampers to Nat King Cole. From country music to the blues. There are music legends everywhere. The Alabama Music Hall of Fame is at 617 Highway 72 West, Tuscumbia, Alabama. The Alabama Music Hall of Fame, where the legends live.
From the pens of the Kennedy twins comes a new literary composition. The renowned authors of The South Was Right and a dozen more publications have become known for their zeal for conservatism and Southern heritage preservation. In their new book, Jefferson Davis' High Road to Emancipation and Constitutional Government, Donnie and Ron Kennedy hold nothing back. They're quick to point out Davis's high road approach to emancipation, while Lincoln chose the low road. Never afraid of controversy and to go against the grain of the politically correct, the Kennedy twins expose how our constitutional republic of sovereign states has been transformed into a deep state of federal government. To get your copy of the book that defends President Davis and the South, go to www.kennedytwins.com. That's www.kennedytwins.com. What happened to William Johnson? He's born into slavery, he becomes a freedman of color, becomes an extremely successful businessman. What takes place? Where does his life end?
All right, let's start at the beginning. We think it was his father. There's no DNA record, but William Johnson, I'm going to call him Senior.
Okay.
All right. He had a slave named Amy. Amy was a female that fathered William Johnson Jr.
Following the tree.
Yeah, right. Now, we don't know if this is the case, but we're just speculating. He freed Amy and William Johnson in the courts and system in Louisiana. He was in Louisiana, and he brought her over here, established her. Now, listen. The state laws in every southern state, if you freed a slave, you could do that, but you had to make sure they could provide for themselves. And if something happened to them, you were ultimately responsible for them. Right. So he made sure that Amy was well educated, was established in a business, that she could support herself and her son. And her son was still in slavery because according to the laws of Louisiana at that time, you couldn't free somebody that age because they couldn't support themselves.
Gotcha.
All right. So they moved to, Amy and her son moved to Mississippi. And then somewhere around 1820, William Johnson had established himself Senior now in Mississippi, in the Natchez area. So he petitions the legislature of Mississippi to free the young man, William Johnson. And in the petition, he talks about the evils of slavery and how because of the complexion of skin, this young boy suffers the degradation of enslavement in our supposedly free country.
Right.
Now, this petition went to the Mississippi State Legislature, then to the Mississippi Senate, and then to the governor. Now, did the legislature say, oh no, we believe slavery is the greatest thing in the world? No, they agreed with the man. you'll notice that at about that time, the Mississippi legislature and the governor of Mississippi, it was the Governor Brandon, had already condemned slavery and said we need to look for a way to end slavery. The people of Mississippi and the South never, very few, only a small minority really believed that slavery should exist forever. The bulk of the people wanted slavery to end, but they wanted it to end in such a way that the slaves could be provided with an education, a job opportunity, and a society in which they could articulate.
So
and
they could
live.
flourish.
Exactly.
Wanted them to flourish.
And so anyway, the Mississippi legislature and the governor signed it and freed the man. And it's interesting, you go back and read, if you go get his journal, he records this, what his father, I think it was his father, at least his slave master, said about slavery and how evil it was and how it should be done away with.
Right.
The legislature agreed with him. Now, there again, it goes against the narrative that all Southerners wanted to keep slavery forever.
Right.
That is not the case. The case is we wanted to end slavery, but we had to end it in such a way that it would be advantage to the slave that was once free and society in general. So that's one of the more interesting things. Then shortly after that, now, in his Papers of Freedom, William Johnson Sr. was obligated to see to that young boy was educated and provided with job opportunity, or else William Johnson Sr. would be responsible for the man forever.
Right.
And that's exactly what he did. And William Johnson, the man that we're talking about now, the young boy grew up to a man. By the time he was 18, he already owned a barbershop in Grand Gulf.
Cool. I love that. That's a great story.
Man, I tell you.
18 years old and having your own business.
That's right.
That is a good story.
And then he had business here in Natchez, and very popular business with everybody. And then he began to acquire land. He acquired a plantation and out from Natchez. And he started buying slaves, and he owned slaves.
Do you have an idea of how many at all?
I think in total in his whole life, maybe up to 20 to 25. At his death, if I remember correctly, there was 15, I believe. Some of them was his household servants. Sure. In Natchez, you go look at his house, right behind his home, you'll see the slave quarters. Now,
and they're nice. They're brick.
Oh yeah,
they're very nice brick quarters. Yeah,
my family at that time were in log cabins with dirt floors.
Right.
These people lived in brick homes with a nice
with double chimneys.
Yeah,
absolutely. Which meant a lot back then.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you were uptown. You know, that's why a lot of times the slaves would say they'd rather be a slave than a poor white trash. You know, they had it better off.
It worked in their favor, especially for him. Now, jump into the part to where he lived his life out here, and did he pass away in his home here, or is he buried here in this area?
He's buried somewhere in this area. I have not located his grave. I'm hoping maybe today we can find out from some people where he is interred. But he was a well-respected citizen in the area, so I'm sure that he's got a grave marked somewhere.
Can you remember what year it was?
I think it was 1853 or 1855. I've got it in my records over here.
Just a few years before the war.
Oh yeah. He died at least 5 years before the war. So, and that's what's so interesting. His journal is not tainted with war propaganda. Right. It tells you about his existence in Natchez, how he related to people, white and black, free and slave, and how he conducted his business and how prosperous he was. That's the amazing thing. He was so very prosperous. A lot of people still have the idea that before the war, the South was a poverty-ridden area. No, the South was one of the richest areas. In Mississippi, there were more millionaires per capita in Mississippi than any other state in the Union at that time. So we were very prosperous before the war.
Right.
After the war is when the poverty set in, and the poverty was just as hard on the white and black. It didn't distinguish between color. We were all impoverished because everything was destroyed and stolen and taken away.
Broke is broke. It don't matter.
Absolutely.
And I've been there. I've been broke, brother. Will this content be in a future book, or what are you going to do with some of this information? Because besides my audience being able to see it, I think the public needs to know more about this.
Some of this information is already in some of our books.
Good.
The book that we talk about on your program, Jefferson Davis, The High Road to Emancipation.
So it's mentioned there.
Constitution.
Great.
We talk about it in the book, The South Was Right. We talk about it a good bit. And you're right, I've got a book on slavery that is now is no longer in publication. I'm redoing it, and I'm going to have a big chapter on not only William Johnson, but there are other. William Johnson was not just one person. Just popped up here. In Louisiana, there were several. In Mississippi, there. South Carolina, even more. Matter of fact, one person told me that in South Carolina, the largest slaveholder was a black man in 1860.
Well, I tell you what, Donnie, I appreciate your time, and what we're going to do, we're going to come back at another date, and we're going to talk about another place around Natchez, the Devil's Punch Bowl.
Oh, yes. And
it's got a great story.
You wouldn't want to drink out of that punch bowl,
you wouldn't.
friend.
Well, folks, when we come back, I'm going to have Donnie back on our show again very soon, and when we do, we're going to be talking about the Devil's Punch Bowl. Now, you're going to think that's something entirely different than what it is, but when you see that segment, you're going to be quite intrigued. We'll be back on History Highway.
The American buffalo, the bison, what a beautiful animal. And it's as if I can hear and see them running down towards the river, thousands upon thousands, and behind them, American Indians chasing them because they're synonymous with each other. The sounds are gone now, but in my new book, Native Voices, you can once again hear the sounds and the voices of the people. Native Voices by David Chaltis on Amazon.com.
Native American Voices by David Chaltis is full of wit and wisdom, straight from the words spoken by the original Americans. Get your copy today on Amazon.com.
When my mother was in college, she danced with Confederate veterans. To me, it wasn't that far away. You know, my father knew this, my mother knew this. Almost 50 years ago, I joined the Sons of Confederate Veterans. In those days, we weren't concerned about saving monuments or any of those things. That wasn't necessary. In fact, none of us had any remote idea that it would ever come up, or we would have done something then. We can't just sit there and react. We have to be proactive.
The Sons of Confederate Veterans is the direct heir of the United Confederate Veterans and the oldest hereditary organization for male descendants of Confederate soldiers. Organized at Richmond, Virginia in 1896, the SCV continues to serve as a historical, patriotic, and non-political organization dedicated to ensuring that a true history of the 1861 to 1865 period is preserved. Membership in the SCV is open to all male descendants of any veteran who served honorably in the Confederate Armed Forces.
The American buffalo, the bison, what a beautiful animal. And it's as if I can hear and see them running down towards the river, thousands upon thousands, and behind them, American Indians chasing them because they're synonymous with each other. The sounds are gone now, but in my new book, Native Voices, you can once again hear the sounds and the voices of the people. Native Voices by David Chaltis on Amazon.com.
Native American Voices by David Chaltis is full of wit and wisdom, straight from the words spoken by the original Americans. Get your copy today on Amazon.com.
Looks like they're walking in the opposite direction of the police, dancing and chanting in the middle of the streets. This is the first time we have spotted fire. There is now an American flag on fire.
Washington and Jefferson, and at least 1,000 more, fathered a nation with freedom from shore to shore. A symbol of that freedom, Lord, we fly all across this land. Why somebody wants to burn it, I can't understand. Well, it just burns me up when someone burns our flag. If they don't like Old Glory, well, they can just pack their bags and move to another country where their freedom's not so true. No, I see red when they set fire to the red and white and blue. Had a dream the other night, Lord, it shook my very soul. They raised another flag up that sacred pole. Those stars and stripes were gone, 'cause we didn't take time to say, leave our flag alone and put your mockery away. It just burns me up when someone burns our flag. If they don't like Old Glory, they can just pack their bags and move to another country where their freedom's not so true. No, no. I see red when they set fire to the red and white and blue. It just burns me up when someone burns our flag. If they don't like Old Glory, they can just pack their bags and move to another country where their freedom's not so true. No, no. I see red when they set fire to the red and white and blue. Red when they set fire to the red and white and blue. May our banner ever wave.
My crew keeps me on the road from episode to episode, 'cause they all know I got a million stories to tell. And I'm no dinosaur, it's cool to explore what makes a country great and put the crack in the Liberty Bell. So take a ride down the history highway. We're headed back to the days of old. So take a ride down the history highway. I got the pedal to the metal and I'm letting this Chevy roll. I got the pedal to the